Betty Broderick recently died, and she died in prison. And the reason she died in prison is because when she went before the parole board, she still seemed very angry. After over 10 years, she seemed very angry. Now, a lot of people will kill their exes. A lot of people kill their romantic rivals. Why did this case get so much publicity? There was a reason. And that reason is that it represented a problem that exists that society has failed to deal with, and that has in fact gotten worse over the last few decades. And that problem is fairness for full-time homemakers. One of the reasons that the women's liberation movement broke in the 1970s was the very precarious position of full-time homemakers. Unfortunately, women's liberation was often used as an excuse to worsen the problem instead of addressing it. What's more, there were some so-called feminists, like Simone de Beauvoir, who didn't even think that staying home with your children, even when they were babies, should be a choice. Note, I didn't say that it should be forced on women who didn't want it. She didn't even think it should be a choice. Well, it is a choice. It's a valid choice. I don't personally believe in the nagging that some people do about it, but I do think it should be a choice that is allowed and respected. But it also does require legal protection, because when anybody, man or woman, has been out of the paid labor market for any length of time, their value in the paid labor market deteriorates a great deal. In fact, it may be pretty much close to impossible for them to get back in. And this is the problem that Betty Broderick represented to a lot of women. Very often, what happened to her, the husband, when he became very successful, when he became very rich, he wanted someone who looked like Betty Broderick, but who was younger. And that is something that happens quite frequently. It may be biologically rooted. And she had very little way to protect herself financially. She couldn't get back in the paid labor market after, taking all that time off to raise her children. And she was at the mercy of a man who was a big shot in the world of law. He was an attorney, and he was a, real big shot among attorneys. So she could not get a settlement that left her secure. And that was why there was so much publicity around her case. Was a kind of case of June Cleaver gone homicidal. I'm not justifying what she did, but I am pointing out there were larger implications. Also, if you want to learn more about the case, you can learn more about it and about her life in prison by reading my $5 ebook, Voices from the Inside, Letters from Famous Prisoners, because I did correspond with Betty Broderick. Her case is dealt with in that ebook. And her life in prison is dealt with in that ebook. And her letters to me are reproduced in that ebook.